One millionaire discovered a humiliated cleaner on a blind date. His unexpected ACT left her in shock. Jenna stepped into the lavish restaurant, the scent of gourmet cuisine mingling with the gleam of chandeliers above. Her heart raced not from excitement but from anxiety. A lone mother, working as a cleaner in opulent hotels, she felt painfully out of place among the well-dressed patrons. She clutched her purse tightly, every bit of her uniform feeling like a reminder of her lowly position. As she searched for her date at the crowded bar, her gaze snagged on luxurious silk ties and polished shoes, the shimmering world of wealth reflecting harshly against her frayed jeans and worn sneakers. When he arrived, Jake greeted her with a condescending smile. As they settled into their seats, his offhand remarks began. "You clean hotels? That must be interesting." Each word, coated in incredulity, felt like sandpaper against her skin. A stomach churning with nausea, Jenna fought to keep her composure, the hum of laughter and clinking glasses around her pulsating like an unwelcome drumbeat. Couldn't he see the long hours, the grit, the commitment she poured into providing for her daughter? Instead, she was reduced to a source of entertainment for his ego. Just then, a tall figure caught her eye from across the room. Ethan, a self-made millionaire, was watching the unfolding scene. He worked hard to navigate the depths of the tech industry, establishing a name for himself while rejecting the shallow expectations of wealth. Unfazed by the privileged setting, his face reflected something Jenna had long forgotten: compassion. As Jake continued to undermine her, Ethan's watchful gaze ignited an unfamiliar warmth. She should look away, but she couldn't. Jenna's mind raced, caught in a storm of conflicting emotions. Pride wrestled with humiliation as she struggled to maintain her delicate facade. What right did Jake have to belittle her? Who did he think he was? Yet there she sat, unable to find her voice, drowning in a swell of self-doubt. For a moment, she considered fleeing the restaurant, the weight of judgment too heavy to carry. But then there was Ethan, surprisingly compelling in his authenticity. "Excuse me," Ethan interjected, crafting a scenario around spilled wine as he approached their table. "I need some assistance." As their eyes met, Jenna felt an unspoken tether, a connection forged in understanding. Ethan's kindness was a contrast to Jake's disdain, and she found herself drawn into a conversation that flowed naturally, rich with shared values. The grim reality of her situation, however, loomed large. Each laugh felt like a balance teetering on the edge of a precipice. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Jenna's thoughts drifted back to her daughter, feeding into her internal strife. "I paint," she confessed under the weight of vulnerability. He encouraged her gently, igniting something deep within her, a flicker of hope mixed with fear. Would the world judge her for pursuing a dream when her reality was so demanding? As their conversation deepened, doubts tangled with aspirations. She craved to be more than just a cleaner but feared the societal gaze. What was she willing to sacrifice for that dream? With every word shared, the chasm between their worlds widened. A heavy silence draped over her as she realized the pain of potential rejection. Would she step beyond the self-imposed limitations for the sake of her artistry, or would she choose the safe, albeit stifling, existence she was accustomed to? Ethan's kindness tugged at her, yet anxiety gnawed at her resolve. As the night pressed on, she stood at a precipice, and the urgency to choose mounted, leaving her suspended between ambition and fear. Jenna realized that every word she shared with Ethan was drawing her further into a world she had nearly abandoned, a world of creativity and freedom that felt almost unreachable. The laughter around them faded as her internal dialogue churned, filled with frustration and yearning. Her gaze shifted to Ethan, captivated by the way he listened. He wasn't just polite, he seemed genuinely invested in her words. "You should pursue your painting," he urged softly, his tone imbued with understanding. What holds you back? I don't have the time, she replied, frustration bubbling to the surface. I work multiple jobs, and when I come home, I'm too exhausted to pick up a brush. It feels like a pointless chase. Ethan's expression turned serious. It's never pointless if it brings you joy. But it sounds like you're letting fear dictate your choices. You're so much more than what you do to survive, Jenna. His words struck a nerve, reverberating through her core. She had submerged her identity beneath layers of responsibility. The relentless pursuit of stability for her daughter came at the cost of living for herself. But the luminous glow of Ethan's belief in her threatened to fracture the tightly held walls of her self-doubt. What if I fail? She questioned, a tremor in her voice betraying her confidence. Failure is part of the journey. What matters is that you try. Besides, he added with a hint of humor, what's the worst that could happen? You lose a little paint. Or maybe you'll uncover a talent that surprises you. Jenna chuckled, the tension easing slightly. But as the laughter faded, the reality of her dreams crashed back over her. The weight of her responsibilities loomed larger than any canvas she had ever stared at, waiting for inspiration. What would her daughter think if she dedicated precious time to the pursuit of something deemed frivolous amidst their hardships? The question hung in the air, an anchor dragging her down into uncertainty. Yet, as Jenna glanced at Ethan, she saw the hopeful spark in his eyes. He embodied the freedom that she longed to feel. What if embracing her passion could transform her life instead of dragging her down? As their conversation shifted towards art, Jenna's excitement grew. She recounted the nights spent lost in swirling colors and vivid imaginations. Ethan leaned closer, captivating her with his own passion for innovation and technology as a means of creative expression. Yet the dialogue kept returning to her barriers: financial security, time constraints, a self-imposed identity rooted in limitation. Let's make a small plan, he suggested, his sincerity disarming. Can you set aside just half an hour a week? Create something, anything authentically you. See where it takes you. You'll never know unless you try. Half an hour a week felt paltry yet monumental. She could almost allow hope to propel her forward, nudging her towards a reality she had grown accustomed to dismissing. But the creeping voice of her insecurities whispered loud and clear, what if you fail? What if you reveal the depths of your ambition and only find ridicule? Wouldn't it be wiser to play it safe and prioritize your roles as a worker and mother? She struggled with the internal war. The urge to retreat into the security of her routine battled against the spark of life that Ethan ignited within her. I'll think about it, she replied, her voice tinged with both uncertainty and determination. The evening rolled on, more conversations drifted through the air, but Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that she stood on the verge of an important decision. Was she willing to tilt the balance towards a path of self-exploration, or would she retreat into complacency, further shadowed by her fears? As the night drew to a close, Jenna made a silent vow to confront her doubts. The conflict within her raged, yet she felt an unfamiliar stirring of courage, accompanied by the lingering warmth of Ethan's faith in her. But as she gathered her things to leave, doubt re-emerged, filled with sharp clarity. What awaited her when she returned to her familiar life? The overwhelming pressure to prioritize practicality hovered on the fringes, whispering its demands. Facing the undeniable reality was one thing, but breaking free from the chains that held her was another. As she stepped outside into the chilly night air, Jenna caught sight of her reflection in the glass door. The woman staring back exhibited resilience, determination, but also uncertainty. Could she truly pivot her life towards something as seemingly insignificant as painting? The question gnawed at her, sending a tremor of anxiety racing through her. What would the first step look like? The night air suddenly felt suffocating, charged with questions that loomed like unresolved shadows. Would she dare to take that half an hour each week? Or would fear stifle the glimmer of aspiration budding within her? As she walked away, the echo of those looming questions set the stage for her upcoming struggles. Something deep within her sensed an approaching storm, and it felt like the beginning of something pivotal. The moment of truth was dawning, and she could either embrace it or let it slip away. The next day dawned, the sun filtering in through Jenna's window, casting a warm glow that felt like a gentle invitation. Yet, beneath the brightness, that familiar weight of uncertainty pressed down on her. She stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, running her fingers through her hair, catching sight of dark circles that had settled beneath her eyes. What had she become? The relentless churn of work, routine, and responsibility had worn her thin. She had spent the entire night tossing and turning, wrestling with the decision that loomed larger than life. A half-hour of creativity seemed so trivial in the grand scheme of her existence, yet it represented a crack in her concrete reality. Could she really dare to carve time out from her hectic life? The notion felt both liberating and frightening, like straddling a tightrope between her responsibilities and the potential joys that could emerge from pursuing her passion. With each passing minute, she felt the gravitational pull of her usual responsibilities tightening its grip. Images of bills piled high, the hustle of 2 jobs, the endless tasks of motherhood, each one pressed into her mind like nails to a coffin lid. But then there was Ethan's voice echoing in her head, "What's the worst that could happen?" She picked up her phone, hesitantly scrolling through pictures of her past artwork, watercolors that shimmered with life and vibrancy, captured moments of her imagination. There was a time when these images filled her with joy, but now they felt foreign, relics of a life she had cast aside. As a wave of nostalgia washed over her, a realization struck: these were parts of her she had buried, and in doing so, she had buried a piece of herself. Part of Jenna longed to reclaim that joy, but another part feared what it would mean. If she embarked on this journey and failed, would it indicate her worthlessness? Would she be revealing layers of herself that were unprepared for the scrutiny of the outside world? Determined to explore this growing tension, Jenna grabbed her sketchbook from a dusty corner of the living room, flipping through the pages until she found one that felt right. Blank canvases didn't scare her, it was the potential vulnerability they invited that could crack her open anew. As she held the pencil in her hand, it felt foreign, heavy with the weight of expectation. What if this time she could do it differently? What if this time she could emerge not as a failure, but as a woman who dared to dream? Jenna closed her eyes, envisioning herself immersed in a world of color and creativity. The thought ignited a flicker of electricity within her, just enough to pierce through the fog of self-doubt. She opened her eyes and began to sketch. Lines flowed from her pencil as if they were secrets trapped inside her, releasing themselves into the world. There was an exhilarating freedom in letting her hands orchestrate the visual symphony that had long been stifled. The clock ticked away as time slipped through her fingers, yet she hardly noticed the hours passing. The burst of adrenaline fueled her process, and for the first time in ages, she found herself smiling at the work before her. The painting was not flawless, nor was it the culmination of her former self. It was simply her a reflection of the struggle, the longings, and above all, the courage to step into the unknown. As the sun began to set, casting shadows that danced around her living room, a part of her felt exhilarated. However, lurking beneath that exhilaration was the ever-looming question of practicality. Could she maintain this newfound fire amid the whirlwind of her life? And suddenly, a fresh realization washed over her. The true test lay not in locking herself away in solitary creativity but in weaving this passion into the fabric of her everyday existence. It dawned upon her that she could hold both roles, the determined worker and the passionate artist. What if she could integrate the two seamlessly, reclaiming not just her love for painting, but living a life enriched by both practicality and creativity? This revelation ignited something within Jenna, pushing her towards a decision. She felt a newfound determination rising within her, a commitment to both confront her fears and embrace her aspirations. Yet as the night deepened, she knew the battle against her doubts was far from over. One question lingered vividly in her mind: what was the next step in this metamorphosis? As she set her sketchbook carefully aside, her phone buzzed with a notification, an invitation that could derail everything she had just unearthed or become a catalyst for the next chapter in her journey. With a mix of apprehension and excitement, Jenna grasped her phone, knowing the answer would either reaffirm her new resolve or plunge her back into the depths of doubt. Jenna's heart raced as she read the notification on her phone. It was an invitation to a community art showcase, something she had often dreamed of attending but had never dared to join. The thought of exposing her own work, once only a solitary passion, now loomed ahead of her like a gaping chasm that threatened to swallow her whole. Was this an opportunity or a pitfall? She let the invitation linger in her thoughts, weighing the potential benefits against the risks. The showcase could serve as a springboard, a chance to reintegrate art into her life and pursue a dream she had long buried under the weight of practicality. But what if the audience found her work lacking? What if the mistakes she had made echoed louder than the colors she hoped to convey? With a deep breath, she pushed aside the flood of self-doubt. Each fear felt like a stone in her path, but now she saw them for what they were: challenges to be faced head-on. The revelation she had the night before echoed in her mind: she could both nurture her responsibilities and embrace her creativity. This showcase could be the very test of that integration. Jenna sat down, determination solidifying in her chest. She opened her sketchbook to the emerging painting she had worked on the previous evening. Her mind traced the layers of paint, the vibrancy of colors contrasting sharply against her life's monochrome grayness. Each stroke, each line was a heartbeat, a reminder that she was still alive, still capable of creating beauty. The decisions ahead were still daunting. Should she submit a piece for the showcase? Or could she simply attend as an observer, allowing herself to be inspired without exposing her vulnerabilities as an artist? The swirl of excitement and anxiety blurred her focus, but Jenna recognized this moment as pivotal. Would she remain a spectator in her own story, or would she dare to plunge into the unknown? Her fingers itched to start anew. Jenna realized the answer lay in proportionality. Perhaps she did not have to submit a finished work yet. Instead, she could embrace the showcase as a tentative step, perhaps sharing an unfinished piece or merely engaging with other artists in attendance. This way, she could gather not just validation but insight, fostering connections that could lead to growth both personally and artistically. Jenna began to draft plans, balancing her day job with her newfound commitment. Mornings meant early bursts of creativity before the rush of day-to-day life engulfed her. She strategized how to maximize the little time she had, setting aside moments where she could dive into her art without guilt. But the clock continued to tick. Time felt like a relentless adversary, demanding her attention and adherence to responsibilities that often came first. Each night, as she fought to find balance, Jenna encountered the specter of exhaustion. The artwork began to feel like a weight, a double-edged sword whose demands stalked her rest. With a steely resolve, she committed to presenting one modest piece for the art showcase, pouring her heart into it even amidst the burdens of her life. She held the brush in her hand and allowed herself to flow with spontaneity, keeping her focus sharp on the masterpiece emerging before her. 2 days later, as the showcase approached, she gathered the supplies and prepared to transport the piece. The walk to the venue felt laden with both anticipation and dread. What if people laughed? What if she felt unworthy among seasoned artists? These questions trailed her. In the crowd, Jenna spotted familiar faces from her past, reminders of the life she had almost shunned. Familiar anxiety flickered in her chest, but it was overshadowed by an exhilarating realization: she was choosing this moment, presenting herself in a way that felt authentic. Whatever happened next, she was taking ownership of her story. As she approached the entrance, Jenna felt the weight of her insecurities pushing at the edges of her resolve. She paused, hand hovering over the door. The moment of truth had arrived. Would she step through into the world of art, or would she retreat into the shadows of self-doubt once more? With her heart pounding, she took a deep breath, ready to confront her fears and make her mark. The answer lay just beyond the threshold. The door creaked open, and Jenna stepped inside, heart thundering in her chest as she took in her surroundings. The air buzzed with conversations and laughter, the scent of paint and varnish mingling with the aroma of brewed coffee. It was a stark contrast to her doubts, a vivid tapestry woven with the vibrant energy of creativity. Yet, she felt as though she were stepping onto a stage where the spotlight dwelled on her insecurities. For a brief moment, she hesitated at the threshold, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze. But within that swarm of humanity, something sparked in her. Each person was navigating their own challenges, choosing to share their unique narratives through art. It dawned on her that vulnerability was a shared quality, a canvas upon which they all painted their stories. Jenna took a breath and pushed further into the space, ready to embrace her OWN. As she adjusted the strap of her bag, the reality of her submission loomed over her, an unfinished piece carrying her ambitions nestled among completed works. Butterflies danced in her stomach. She spotted her painting at the far end of the gallery, a burst of colors against more subdued backdrops. Each vibrant brushstroke represented not just her artistry, but her desire to reclaim a part of herself, one she feared was lost forever. "Jenna!" A familiar voice called out, interrupting her reverie. She turned to see Megan, a university friend and fellow artist. The happiness in her voice felt like a beacon, illuminating the shadows of Jenna's fear. They embraced, and the warmth of their friendship enveloped her. "I can't believe you're here. How are you settling in?" Megan's eyes sparkled with genuine interest. Jenna felt her shoulders relax. "Just trying to get back into the groove of things," she replied, watching the crowd. "It's nerve-wracking, but I thought I'd finally take a shot." Megan nudged her gently. "Don't sell yourself short, the artists here come in all forms. Half of them are just like you, still finding their footing. Plus, you should be proud to share what you've created." There was an earnestness in Megan's tone that pushed Jenna a step closer to confidence. As their conversation flowed, Jenna began connecting with others, sharing the intent behind her work, the concept hidden in each stroke. Art became a bridge, sparking discussions on inspiration, struggle, and self-discovery. For the first time, she was seen not just as a contributor, but as an artist in her own right. Each compliment, each nod of understanding chipped away at the wall of doubt around her. When it came time for her to step closer to her piece, Jenna felt that familiar tightening in her chest. The knowledge that it was unfinished, yet real, gnawed at her. What ended up mattering more than perfection was her willingness to be present. She heard snippets of praise from those around her, the words floating toward her like delicate notes of music that filled her lungs with hope. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw someone stop in front of her artwork, a stranger, middle-aged, impeccably dressed. He nodded slowly, deep in thought, as he traced the lines with his gaze. Jenna's breath caught in her throat. What was he thinking? Was he judging the unrefined edges, the places where she couldn't find the resolution? Suddenly, he turned and met her eyes. "There's a rawness to this piece," he remarked. "It feels like you're inviting the viewer into a conversation." "Thank you," Jenna managed, the tension easing a fraction with genuine reinforcement. The man continued, "I believe art should reflect the authentic voice of the creator, regardless of what we consider complete or worthy. Allow that authenticity to guide you." His words, though simple, landed heavy with truth, and just like that, a small spark ignited within her, a willingness to let the moment carry her. As the evening progressed, Jenna found herself engaging more and more. Each interaction wove her deeper into this vibrant tapestry of artists and art lovers. But as her confidence began to build, was it enough to silence the voice that urged her to doubt? The clamor of excitement began to drown out the whispers of insecurity, yet a new thought began to take form: what if this was just the beginning? Her heart raced once more, not from fear, but anticipation. What other walls could she break down? What would happen if she continued to share her creativity? The assertive clarity of her shift in perspective sent a thrill through her. Perhaps this showcase would serve not only as a testament to her skill but as a catalyst for transformation. And just as she began to reimagine her path forward, she felt someone approach her again, this time a chic woman with a sketchbook clutched tightly under her arm. "Are you Jenna?" The question was simple, but the weight behind it threatened to tilt her balance. "Yes," Jenna replied, bracing for whatever came next. Uncertainty gripped her once again, but now it felt different, like an invitation. "Good. We need to talk about how you can be part of something bigger." Jenna's pulse quickened. She was ready to confront the opportunity, whatever it entailed. But what expansive future lay behind that door? The woman stepped closer, her confident stance rooted in purpose. "I'm Claire, an art coordinator for a new collective opening soon. We're looking for fresh talent who aren't afraid to put themselves out there. Your piece caught my eye. It speaks, and I believe it has the power to connect with a larger audience. Jenna's heart raced, equal parts exhilaration and trepidation swirling inside her. Connect with a larger audience? The very idea sent a jolt of adrenaline through her. For years, she doubted her abilities, sticking to shadows and keeping her voice muted. Yet, here was an opportunity with her name written all over it, swinging like a pendulum between thrilling and terrifying. Are you interested? Claire asked, her keen gaze assessing Jenna's reaction. An internal battle erupted. Jenna wanted desperately to say yes, to leap from the safety of her uncertainty into the larger world she yearned to inhabit. What would this involve? She stammered, gathering her thoughts. She needed to manage her expectations, cautious not to let her excitement overwhelm the reality of the situation. There will be workshops, collaborations, and exhibitions, Claire explained enthusiastically. You'd be part of a community of artists pursuing their visions, people who push boundaries and explore emotions through their work. More importantly, it's not just about showcasing art, it's about sharing stories, experiences, and finding your voice. Start by sharing your narrative. That's what transforms art into something profound. As Claire spoke, Jenna felt alive, her imagination igniting. The notion of storytelling through her paintings fueled a sense of purpose within her. The blend of vulnerability and strength she had explored in her current piece mirrored the essence of what Claire was describing. Yet, the whisper of her insecurities buzzed insistently in the back of her mind. What if I'm not ready? She thought. What if I fail in front of those artists? That very moment, Megan ambled by, her expression catching Jenna's attention. It was a reminder that there were others like her who struggled, yet here they were, willing to share. What do you think? Jenna turned to her friend, needing validation. Megan smiled. This is an incredible chance. Your art deserves to reach more people. I've seen you grow already. Imagine what could happen next. Jenna glanced back at Claire, who was patiently waiting for her response, a blend of encouragement and curiosity in her demeanor. Time seemed to slow as possibilities churned in Jenna's mind. Say yes, a voice deep within urged. Okay, yes. She hardly recognized her own voice, the determination surfing over her initial hesitation. Claire beamed. Excellent. We'll set up a meeting soon to discuss what it looks like moving forward. You'll have the support you need as you embark on this journey. Every nerve in Jenna's body buzzed with a new electricity as a weight began lifting from her shoulders. She had stepped onto a stage, not just to share an artwork, but to present herself fully as an artist. As the vibrant evening began to wind down, Jenna found herself standing in front of her painting once again, this time with newfound clarity. It was no longer merely an unfinished piece, it represented the start of her journey, a declaration of resilience and a quest to find her professional voice among the cacophony of talent. The moment was both grounding and liberating. Jenna couldn't help but wonder about the challenges that might lie ahead, what skills she needed to cultivate, how she would manage her fear in the face of creative vulnerability. Yet, instead of feeling overwhelmed, she felt the strong pull of possibility drawing her forward. She would confront her doubts head-on during this adventure, gradually unearthing layers of her identity and creativity along the way. With energy surging through her veins, Jenna stepped out of the gallery into the cool night air. Her mind was alive with plans, and the rhythm of her heartbeat matched the resolve swelling within her. What battles would she face as she stepped into this new light? How would she reconcile her ambition with the shadows of fear? Thoughts whirled as the city around her pulsed with life, but amid the chaos, a spark of determination settled within her soul. It was a call to action, the challenge of channeling her own authenticity into art. And just then, another thought crossed her mind, one that gave her pause but also a thrill. What if she was not just an artist but a curator of her own story? Maybe this path would compel her to confront parts of herself she had long avoided. As she walked home, each step felt more deliberate, propelling her toward what she could become, a brave artist emerging from the shadows. The night held secrets, adventures and encounters she had yet to imagine. Would she continue to evolve, or would the fear creep back in, threatening to shatter her newly formed confidence. And as she entered her apartment, fingers trembling with anticipation, a question echoed in her mind: was it possible that the key to her transformation lay not in the art she created, but in the very narrative she dared to share? The following days blended together in a haze of anticipation. Jenna couldn't shake the thrill of her decision. Each morning, she woke up, filled with newfound energy, and plunged into her artwork with a passionate clarity she had yet to experience. Her canvas became a reflection of her internal struggle, the colors stark and vibrant, the strokes bold yet tinged with uncertainty. Yet, as she painted, the nagging question returned: what narratives did she have to share? Jenna found herself confronting the things she'd buried within, the insecurities, the doubts about how her past colored her present. She felt as though she was peeling away layers of her identity with each brushstroke, exposing a raw vulnerability she was both eager and terrified to acknowledge. Even as she immersed herself in her work, the realities of the art world began to sink in. Claire had arranged for her to meet with various artists in the coming weeks, including a workshop that promised to be both illuminating and intimidating. But beneath her excitement loomed a shadow of self-doubt. What if she wasn't as good as they were? What if her art didn't resonate as profoundly as the others? Each thought felt like a stone weighing her down, anchoring her in place, fear pulling against her desire to soar. With a flicker of rebellion against this self-imposed debilitation, Jenna pulled out a new canvas, determined to let her emotions guide her brush. As she painted, the thoughts poured out, a blend of frustration and hope. I can't hide anymore, she decided. If I want to connect, I need to be real. The revelation illuminated her path forward. To unlock her potential, she needed to share more than just her art. She needed to integrate her personal story into her creative expressions. It was time to confront and embrace the complexities that shaped her, a mosaic of experiences that had defined her existence. Every evening, she sketched her thoughts, journaling the memories that shaped her, pulling faded connections into the forefront of her mind. She recalled the moments when she felt invisible, the countless times she shied away from the spotlight, convinced of her mediocrity. Slowly, the process revealed something critical: her history was not a burden, but a well of richness waiting to be explored. Each painful recollection transformed into fuel that would ignite her creativity, a guiding force that could take her art from mere decoration to a compelling narrative. With every brushstroke, Jenna felt herself shedding the fear that had held her back. It was like gaining armor for the impending challenge she felt approaching. As the workshop day drew nearer, anticipation mixed with anxiety. Would other artists appreciate her journey? Would they understand her struggles? One evening, while pausing from painting, she stood in front of the mirror, examining herself closely. Am I ready? She asked her reflection, her voice low. Deep inside, she knew the answer. It was time to step out of her own narrative shadow. It was time to embrace both her victories and defeats, to let them infuse her art with authenticity. As the workshop approached, Jenna felt an excited chill run down her spine. The uncertainty did not subside, but rather transformed into a different kind of energy, a bubbling readiness. She had made a decision: she would announce her identity boldly, reclaiming it as part of her artistic journey. But as she prepared to embrace this new chapter, a haunting thought struck her. Were her experiences powerful enough? Would others see her as she saw herself? Doubts swirled around her, taunting her as she imagined standing before the artists, the critiques she might face, and the vulnerability she would unveil. That very night, she lay in bed, her heart pounding, mind racing. The workshop awaited, but how to bridge the gap from who she was to who she aspired to be? All the fear bubbled to the surface, prompting a question she had yet to confront: how would she respond if her voice was dismissed, her story trivialized, and in that moment of uncertainty, a spark of defiance ignited within her? She knew she had to prepare, to confront this fear not just externally but internally, as well. Jenna recognized that this was not merely about art, it was about carving out her space in a world that often overlooked stories like hers. As she closed her eyes, feeling the weight of expectation rest on her, she felt an unfamiliar sense of resolve. The real challenge lay ahead, waiting to test her limits. Would she stand firm in her truth or let the fear push her back into the shadows? the workshop was just around the corner, and with it, the potential to redefine everything she understood about herself. As the morning light streamed through her window, Jenna woke to a renewed sense of purpose. The workshop was just a day away, and with it loomed the opportunity to share her art and her voice. She had spent countless evenings preparing, both on the canvas and in her journal, navigating the tangled roots of her experiences. Each entry, an excavation of her past, whispered to her, urging her to embrace the power of vulnerability. With each painting she completed, a small wave of confidence swept through her. Today, however, she felt an electric charge beneath her skin, pushing her to confront her fears head-on. A bold decision simmered in her mind: she would allow herself the space to be authentically unguarded in the workshop. But what does that truly mean? Was she ready to bare her soul to strangers? To share the very essence of her experiences that morphed into her art, she decided to revisit her last painting, a striking blend of colors that encapsulated her abandonment and resurgence. As she studied it, a blend of resentment and pride surged within her. "This is me," she thought, the reflection in the paint reminding her of every silent struggle that had shaped her journey. Yet, a discordant voice echoed, taunting her with doubts. Is it compelling enough? Will they see the beauty in it, or reduce it to merely a brush of color? Jenna's mind oscillated between the excitement of potential acceptance and the paralyzing fear of rejection. Each thought felt like a slider on a scale balance shifting dangerously next to her harsh self-judgments. But as she grappled with these truths, an unexpected clarity washed over her. It wasn't her responsibility to ensure others understood her narrative, it was hers to share and articulate it. Determined, she prepared a small speech that encapsulated her artistic journey. "Art is vulnerability," she began to write. "It's about admitting our imperfections and allowing our stories to resonate. My experiences, not despite but because of their rawness, have shaped the strokes of my life's work." Her heart raced as she practiced the words in front of the mirror. Would they resonate? She fought against the tightening fear in her chest, breathing deeply. The more she rehearsed, the more the words felt like armor. They were her shield against whatever might come: a dismissal, a critique, or perhaps something much kinder, but there were still lingering questions. How adequately could she encapsulate years of struggle within 6 minutes of speech? What if she stumbled over her words, revealing an insecurity she sought to hide? The stakes felt unbearably high, leaving her to grapple with the weight of expectation. Just then, her phone buzzed, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. It was Claire, checking in. "How are you feeling? Ready?" She typed back hesitantly, excited, but terrified. The reply was swift. "You've got this. Remember, art thrives on authenticity. Your story matters." Jenna stared at the words, a sense of comfort washing over her. Empowered, she turned back to her canvas, layering vibrant hues to symbolize her journey. The pressure began to lift, replaced by a quiet confidence. She realized she had something unique to share: her individual narrative, woven into the very fabric of her art. The clock ticked on, rapidly turning towards evening. As she prepared for bed, Jenna felt the familiarity of anxiety creep back in. Tomorrow was not just a workshop, it would be a confrontation with herself. Would she embrace her story or retract into the shadows, safe yet unseen? With every ounce of determination she could muster, Jenna whispered to herself, "It's time to be brave." As she sank into deep sleep, the countdown began. Tomorrow would reveal whether she would emerge victorious, ready to stand tall in her truth, or if the fear would hold her hostage. The world was looming outside her door, waiting for her to take that first step into the unknown. Could she embrace that moment? Or would hesitation rob her of the opportunity? Jenna awoke the next morning with a mix of exhilaration and apprehension swirling in her chest. The sunlight streamed in, brighter than it felt within her, coloring her surroundings in warmth that contrasted sharply with the chill of uncertainty. Today was the day she had both longed for and dreaded. As she prepared her breakfast, the familiar motions felt foreign. Each action was performed on autopilot, her mind spiraling with thoughts of the workshop. What if her speech fell flat? What if her art was met with indifference? The mundane task of pouring cereal suddenly felt monumental, laden with the weight of her fears. She took a deep breath, focusing on the crunch of the flakes, a reminder to ground herself in the present moment. With each bite, she stifled the nagging doubts. Today wasn't just about sharing her art, it was a declaration of who she was. After her meal, Jenna began her morning ritual of makeup and selecting an outfit. Each brush stroke and button was another step toward revealing herself to the world, a delicate dance between armor and authenticity. She lingered over a vibrant scarf, teetering between wanting to blend in and the urge to stand out. "This is an extension of my art," she mused as she wrapped it around her neck. The feeling of empowerment returned slightly as she stepped out the door and took a breath of the crisp morning air. The world beyond her doorstep was alive with sound and movement, and for the first time in days, she felt a flicker of excitement begin to stoke the embers of confidence within her. Her mind danced with thoughts of her painting the colors that spoke of her journey, the struggles that had shaped her installations. What if those strokes could resonate in a room full of strangers? What if she could strip away the layers of self-doubt and allow the beauty of her vulnerability to shine through? Arriving at the workshop venue, Jenna's heart raced uncontrollably. The building loomed ahead, a mix of familiar intimidation and vibrant anticipation. She paused momentarily, pressing her hand against the cool metal of the door, taking a steadying breath. "This is it," she whispered, pushing through the threshold with a determined flutter of courage. Inside, the space buzzed with creativity and camaraderie, artists engaged in lively discussions. Jenna's eyes darted around, momentarily overwhelmed by the energy that danced in the air. A knot tightened in her stomach as insecurities roared to life, whispering that she didn't belong here. That her voice would be drowned out by the louder, more experienced artists that surrounded her. But amidst the growing swell of anxiety was an undeniable urge to connect, to share. She caught sight of a small, intimate gathering in a corner where fellow artists shared their stories. Their laughter felt genuine, and their eyes sparkled with understanding. It was a tangible reminder, everyone had a story worth telling. With renewed resolve, Jenna found her place among them, introducing herself, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The conversation flowed, and as she shared snippets of her journey, she began to experience a shift. A warm acceptance enveloped her. It empowered her to find her voice within the murmur of the room. When it was finally time to present, Jenna approached the canvas she had set up earlier in the day, her heart pounding with each step. With the audience's eyes on her, she felt exposed yet somehow drastically alive. This was her moment, a defined line traced between her past silence and present expression. "Art is vulnerability," she began, the weight of her experiences spilling forth as the audience listened intently. Each word felt like an anchor, grounding her in the reality of her story. But then the unexpected happened. A voice called from the back, an interruptive challenge echoed through her narrative. "But do we care enough? How does that help us?" For a brief moment, shock coursed through her. An internal alarm sounded, sparking doubt at the heart of her newfound confidence. It had begun the confrontation. She had both feared and anticipated. The time had come for her to shed the final layers of insecurity. How would she respond? The weight of expectation surged within her once more, spurring an unexpected moment of resolve. She gathered herself, ready to transform the confrontation into revelation. Could she turn the criticism into an opportunity for deeper connection? With the spotlight on her, Jenna realized she was on the precipice of discovering a strength she had yet to grasp. How she navigated these turbulent waters would define not just her art, but her entire journey ahead. In the wake of that intense encounter, Jenna felt her breath quicken. Facing the audience, she recognized an opportunity. "I appreciate the challenge," she responded, her voice steady. "And that's exactly why I'm here. I'm not just sharing a painting, I'm inviting you into a conversation that is deeply personal to me." As she spoke, clarity washed over her. For many, art may seem inconsequential amid the demands of life. But it holds power. It challenges us to acknowledge our realities, confront our fears, and embrace our stories. Just as we share laughter and pain amongst ourselves, art becomes a medium for honesty, for mirroring our shared humanity." The room shifted with her words. Connection began to blossom, a palpable exchange charged with acknowledgement. She took a moment and allowed the silence to linger, gauging the reactions around her. The previous skepticism was giving way to intrigue, understanding, and even respect. With newfound confidence, she stepped closer to her unfinished painting, her heart ignited with authenticity. "This," she gestured towards the canvas, "is a reflection of my journey. It echoes the doubts, the unanswered questions. It's about rebuilding, not from perfection, but from the truth of being human." As she shared her narrative, the struggles of single motherhood, the exhaustion of juggling jobs, and the rediscovery of her reality through art, the audience began to lean forward, each face revealing a connection, a memory of their own battles that resonated with hers. Jenna's words turned into brushstrokes, weaving a larger tapestry of experience that connected them all. "I may not have rigid outlines," she continued, her courage building with each sentence, "but life isn't about clean edges. It's about the messy arrangements that create beauty. Every mistake, every deviation from what we envisioned, adds dimension to who we are." Visceral reactions played across the faces around her. She could feel the shift in energy, recognition sparking in the eyes of artists and spectators alike. Was it possible that her vulnerability was becoming a bridge? As she concluded her presentation, the applause that erupted felt not just like validation of her art but of her very existence. Jenna basked in the realization that she had transitioned from fear to empowerment, emerging as an artist willing to reveal her truth. The connections she forged in that room filled her with pride, grounding her in a reality that had once seemed utterly unattainable. Afterward, conversations flowed naturally, allowing Jenna to engage more easily. Artists approached her, intrigued by her narrative, wanting to collaborate, wanting to share their own experiences. Each exchange reaffirmed her growth. She was no longer a reluctant participant in her journey but an active contributor with a voice that deserved to be heard. The end of the workshop led to a conversation with Claire. "I'm impressed with your courage," she noted warmly. "Let's talk about integrating that narrative into our collective. You have something special to offer." Claire's affirmation felt like a promise, their goals aligning in a way that made Jenna's heart swell with anticipation. Days turned into weeks, and as Jenna continued to paint, she realized the embrace of her artistic identity was transforming her in ways she hadn't expected. She dedicated moments, not just to her art, but to discovering the nuances of her voice within it. Submitting work to showcases and participating in collaborative projects became a part of her life, as did sharing her story with successive audiences. Each exhibition was a step into the light of validation of her journey. Jenna's fame gradually grew, but she never lost sight of the humility that grounded her. At a major exhibition weeks down the line, Jenna stood before a finished piece, the culmination of her experience, the vibrancy reflecting her embrace of authenticity. The crowd had gathered, interested in her journey as much as her art. When asked about her inspiration, she said simply, "Art is the reflection of our stories. The more we share, the more we realize we're never alone. For every heart that beats, every story that unfolds, there lies a connection." That night, as accolades flowed her way, Jenna acknowledged a profound truth. She had not only rediscovered her passion for painting but had become an advocate for the stories that often go unheard. Her journey had evolved from merely trying to survive to one of thriving, asserting that her voice mattered. Yet the triumph of her story was not just in recognition but in the profound realization she held deep within: she was enough, an artist, a mother, and unapologetically herself. Rather than retreating into shadows, she had emerged vibrant, understanding that her narrative held power, a power to connect, inspire, and transform not just her life, but the lives of many others. And as time moved forward, her art continued to evolve. Challenges become stepping stones, vulnerability turned into strength. Jenna's invitation to the world was not just to witness her art but to partake in a shared narrative, one where humanity connected through shared experiences. Now, perhaps more than ever, she felt equipped to face whatever came next, and her heart was finally free to soar. So, this is the moment to step forward into your own journey. Embrace your story, share it with pride, and remember that vulnerability is your strength. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending, your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.